Picture this. It's midnight. You're alone in your school building, not hiding, not in trouble, just there. The hallways are exactly the same as they are at noon. Same linoleum floors, same painted cinder block walls, same fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. But something is wrong. Not dangerous wrong, not movie monster wrong. Something deeper than that. Something your body knows before your brain catches up. Your pulse is slightly faster. Your eyes keep moving to the far end of the corridor, even though you know, nothing is there. You've been in this hallway 1,000 times. So why does it feel right now like you've never been anywhere more terrifying in your life? The answer isn't what you think it is. And by the end of this, you'll never look at an empty room the same way again. Welcome back to Lime Logic. I'm your silent observer, and today we're performing an autopsy on one of the most quietly disturbing experiences in modern psychology, liminal spaces. We're going to break down exactly why your brain panics in empty places, what the uncanny valley of architecture actually is, why the internet's obsession with back rooms and abandoned malls is not just an aesthetic, it's a symptom. And what all of this reveals about a very specific flaw in how your mind constructs reality. Stay with me, because this one goes deep. Let's start with the word itself. Liminal. It comes from the Latin limen, meaning threshold, a doorway, a boundary between two states. Anthropologists originally used it to describe the middle stage of a ritual, the moment when you are no longer what you were, but not yet what you're becoming. The space between. A wedding ceremony, right before the vows, the moment before you jump, the exact second between sleeping and waking when you're not sure which world you're in. That's the liminal moment. But somewhere around 2019, the internet took this concept and applied it to architecture. And it was perfect because it named something everyone had felt, but no one had words for. A liminal space is a place that exists to transition you from one place to another. Hallways, stairwells, airport terminals at 4 a.m., hotel corridors, the back rooms of shopping malls, parking garages, school corridors on a Sunday. These places have one thing in common. They are not destinations. Nobody goes to a hallway. You go through a hallway. It has a purpose, but that purpose is purely functional, to move you somewhere else. And here's where it gets interesting. When those spaces are full of people, your brain registers them as normal. Background noise, invisible. You don't think about the airport corridor because you're focused on your gate, but remove the people. Leave the corridor intact, the lights on, the carpet unchanged. Just remove every single human being, and something catastrophic happens in your brain's threat assessment system. And we're going to get into exactly what that is. But first, I need you to understand something about your brain that most people never think about. Here's something wild. You don't actually see the world, not in real time anyway. What you experience as seeing is actually your brain's prediction of what the world should look like, constantly updated by incoming sensory data. Neuroscientists call this predictive processing. Your brain builds a model of reality based on patterns, what has always been true before, and then checks that model against what your senses are actually reporting. Most of the time, the model matches. Light hits your eyes, matches the prediction, no alarm. But when the sensory data doesn't match the model, that's when things get uncomfortable. Psychologist Carl Friston, whose work on predictive processing has transformed modern neuroscience, describes this mismatch as prediction error. And your brain treats prediction errors as potential threats, not because something is necessarily wrong, but because unexpected things have historically meant danger. An empty hallway at noon creates zero prediction errors. Your brain expects a hallway, sees a hallway, updates smoothly. An empty hallway at 3 a.m. creates cascading prediction errors. Your brain expects people because hallways have people, but there are none. It expects sound because hallways have ambient human noise, but there's only the hum of fluorescent lights. The model doesn't match reality, and your brain does the only thing it knows how to do when models fail. It sounds the alarm, not loudly, not with flashing lights, just a quiet, persistent, biological whisper that says, something is wrong here. I don't know what, but something is wrong. That feeling, that's not a glitch. That is your threat detection system working exactly as designed. The problem is, it's designed for a world that no longer exists. For most of human history, we're talking hundreds of thousands of years, an empty place meant one of two things. Either everyone left in a hurry or everyone was taken. Neither of those was good. Think about it from a survival perspective. If you're a hunter-gatherer and you return to your camp to find it empty and silent, your brain doesn't think, oh, everyone must be at the river. Your brain thinks predator, disease, raid, aid, run. The absence of people in a human space was one of the most reliable danger signals in our entire evolutionary history. We don't live in that world anymore, but your amygdala, the part of your brain that processes fear and threat, doesn't know that. It's running the same software it ran 200,000 years ago, and that software says empty human space equals danger. This is what psychologists call an evolutionary mismatch, when a biological response that was perfectly adapted to an ancient environment becomes maladaptive in the modern one. You're not afraid of the empty school hallway because something is actually threatening you. You're afraid of it because your amygdala is pattern matching it to every silent campsite, every abandoned cave, every place humans had been but suddenly weren't, that your ancestors ever encountered. Your fear is ancient. The hallway is just the trigger. But here's what's strange, and this is the part that genuinely fascinates researchers. It's not just fear. There's something else mixed in. You've probably heard of the uncanny valley. It's the concept developed by roboticist Masahiro Mori in 1970, describing the discomfort we feel when something looks almost human, but not quite. A cartoon is fine. A real human is fine. But a robot that's 95% human, that's deeply, viscerally wrong. Your brain can't decide whether to treat it as a person or an object, and that indecision creates a specific kind of revulsion. Liminal spaces create the same effect, but for places instead of faces. A destroyed building doesn't unsettle you. It's clearly not functional. Your brain categorizes it immediately. This place is gone. Done. A busy office doesn't unsettle you. It's clearly functional. Your brain categorizes it. This place is alive. Done. But an empty office, lights still on, coffee cups still on desk, chairs pushed back as if someone just stood up. That's the uncanny valley of architecture. It's almost right, almost normal. Everything is in place. The infrastructure of human presence is completely intact, but the humans are gone, and your brain can't categorize it. It keeps bouncing between this place is alive and this place is dead, and neither answer holds. That oscillation, that inability to resolve what category something belongs to, is one of the most psychologically uncomfortable experiences a human being can have. It's the same mechanism that makes clowns unsettling, that makes ventriloquist dummies terrifying, that makes the almost right faces and bad CG I feel wrong in your bones. Your brain needs to categorize things to feel safe. Liminal spaces refuse to be categorized. And so the alarm stays on. There's another layer to this, and it's more philosophical, but it has a direct psychological mechanism behind it. Every space tells you what to do. Walk into a restaurant and you know without being told that you should sit and wait. Walk into a library and you modulate your voice automatically. Walk into a gym and your posture changes. Psychologist James Gibson called this concept affordances, the implicit behavioral invitations that environments extend to their occupants. Spaces communicate purpose, and purpose communicates expected behavior. But a liminal space has lost its context. An empty school hallway at 3 a.m. affords nothing. There's nothing to do here, no one to interact with, no purpose being served. The space is still making demands. The architecture is still saying walk here, move, transition, but there's nowhere to go and no one to go with. And here is something humans find deeply biologically uncomfortable: being in a space with no role to play. We are social creatures. We are always playing a role: student, colleague, customer, parent. These roles give us behavioral scripts. They tell us how to stand, what to say, how to feel. A liminal space strips all of that away. In a liminal space, you have no role. There is no performance expected of you. And paradoxically, that freedom is terrifying, because freedom without structure isn't freedom. It's exposure. You are just a conscious observer in a void that used to mean something, and your brain doesn't know what to do with that. In 2019, a post appeared on 4chan. It described a specific kind of place called the back rooms. And it said this: if you're not careful and you nudge out of the map in real life, you'll end up in the back rooms, where it's nothing but the stink of old moist carpet, the madness of mono yellow, the endless background noise of fluorescent lights at maximum hum buzz, and approximately 600 million square miles of randomly segmented empty rooms to be trapped in forever. That post, paired with a single photograph of an empty yellow room with buzzing lights, exploded across the internet. By 2021, liminal space photography had become a cultural phenomenon. Thousands of people were sharing photographs of empty malls, empty airports, empty swimming pools, empty school corridors, not with horror captions, but with a strange kind of aching recognition. The comments were always the same. Why does this feel familiar? Why does this make me sad? I feel like I've been here before. Now, you might think this was just aesthetic, Gen Z finding a new visual language. And partly It was. But there's something more interesting going on. The psychologist, Jungian analyst Joanna Macy describes collective psychological phenomena as expressions of something a culture is unable to process directly. The liminal space phenomenon is, in her framework, a society trying to metabolize something it can't name. Here's what I think that something is. We live in an era of radical discontinuity. The world we were promised, the stable job, the career ladder, the clear social roles, the legible future, has been replaced by a world of constant disruption. Remote work, platform collapse, algorithm-driven culture, gig economy. The old structures are still technically there. The hallways are still lit, but the purpose is gone. We are, collectively, living in a liminal space. And when the internet found photographs that captured that feeling in physical form, something clicked. This is what it feels like. This is what the inside of our moment in history looks like, made visible. The empty mall isn't just a photograph. It's a mirror. Here's the part that should confuse you, but somehow doesn't. People who spend time looking at liminal space photography don't just feel fear. They feel something else, something quieter, something almost comfortable. And this is the paradox at the heart of the phenomenon. Surveys of online liminal space communities consistently find the same emotional language: peaceful, safe, like being alone without being lonely. How can something that triggers your evolutionary threat detection system simultaneously feel like a refuge? The answer comes from social neuroscience. We are, under normal conditions, constantly being evaluated. The social world is an unending performance review. Every time you walk into a room full of people, your brain is running a parallel process. Am I presenting correctly? Am I being judged? Am I meeting expectations? This process is exhausting. It runs constantly, mostly below conscious awareness, and it consumes significant cognitive resources. An empty, liminal space turns all of it off. There is no one to impress in an empty school hallway. There are no social roles to perform. The evaluation apparatus goes quiet, and for many people, particularly people who find social performance draining, that silence is a profound relief. The fear is ancient. The peace is modern. And they coexist because they come from entirely different systems. Your amygdala says, empty human space, danger. Your prefrontal cortex, exhausted from social performance, says, no audience, rest. And somewhere in the overlap between those two signals, in that cognitive no man's land, liminal spaces produce an emotional experience that has no clean name. Not fear, not comfort, something in between, something liminal. There's one more dimension to this that almost nobody talks about. And once you notice it, you can't unnotice it. Liminal spaces distort your perception of time, not in a metaphorical sense, literally. Your subjective experience of how time is passing changes when you're in a space that has lost its functional context. Psychologist Mark Whitman, who studies the neuroscience of time perception, has shown that our internal sense of time is fundamentally tied to the rhythm of social interaction. We use other people as temporal anchors, the pace of conversation, the rhythm of shared activity, the cadence of social life. These are the mechanisms our brains use to track how much time has passed. Remove the people, remove the social rhythm, and time becomes strange. You've experienced this. A waiting room when no one else is there, an empty train platform, a hotel corridor at 2 a.m. Time doesn't move right. The minutes feel wrong, too slow, or unnervingly stretched, or, most unsettlingly, impossible to measure at all. This temporal distortion is part of why liminal spaces feel uncanny in a way that's hard to articulate. It's not just that the space looks wrong, it's that your internal clock breaks down. You lose your grip on when you are, not just where. And a creature that doesn't know when it is has lost one of its most fundamental survival tools. Let's get specific, because not all liminal spaces hit equally hard, and the psychology of why is worth understanding. Empty swimming pools are consistently rated as among the most unsettling liminal spaces, and the reason is anatomical. Water is the single most primal threat environment in the human evolutionary story. More people die from drowning in our evolutionary history than almost any other environmental hazard. An empty pool presents the architecture of that threat without the threat itself. The deep end is still the deep end. The drain is still the drain. But the water is gone. Your body is prepared for an emergency that isn't coming, and that preparatory tension has nowhere to go. Abandoned malls trigger something slightly different: grief. Shopping malls were, for about 40 years, one of the primary communal spaces of Western life, not just commerce, community, the food court, the fountain, the directory. These places were architecturally designed to be full of people, to feel alive, to provide that sense of being part of something. An abandoned mall is a community that died. And we respond to dead communities the way we respond to dead people: with mourning, with discomfort, with that specific sadness of seeing something that used to be vital now reduced to echoes. Hotel corridors are the most intimate liminal space because hotels are where humans go to be alone together. Every door in a hotel corridor conceals another private world, another life, another story, another drama playing out in another room. An empty hotel corridor is a corridor of sealed stories. You know the rooms are occupied, or were, but you have no access. All that human life right there behind painted wood, completely inaccessible. It creates a specific kind of loneliness, not the loneliness of being alone, the loneliness of being surrounded by invisible others. Stairwells work differently again. Stairwells are architecturally designed to be transitional, not just psychologically, but literally. They are how you move between levels of a building. They have direction built into them. But an empty stairwell in a large building also has a specific acoustic quality. Footsteps echo, voices carry, sound behaves differently than it does in regular rooms. That acoustic strangeness signals this is not a normal space directly to your nervous system, bypassing cognitive processing entirely. The architecture of dread is not accidental. These spaces are unsettling because of precise, measurable interactions between their physical properties and the evolved wiring of the human brain. So what does all of this actually mean? Here's my read on it. The liminal space phenomenon, the photography, the online communities, the back rooms, mythology, the collective fascination. is not a trend, it's a diagnostic. It tells us that a significant number of people are living in a state of chronic social exhaustion, that they are hungry for spaces where performance is not required, that they find something approaching peace in the absence of evaluation, even when that absence comes wrapped in mild existential dread. It tells us that we are uncomfortable with purposelessness, with being in a space that has lost its meaning, because we are uncomfortable with the same quality in our own lives. The empty mall is unsettling, partly because it reflects something we feel about our own moment in history. The structures are still there, the walls still stand, the lights are still on, but the purpose, the collective sense of direction, the shared narrative about where we're going, that's harder to locate than it used to be. And it tells us that the human brain is not built for the world it currently inhabits. We are wired for social density, for clear roles, for legible environments that tell us what to do and where to stand. The modern world increasingly fails to provide those things. And when it fails, our brains produce something that feels exactly like walking alone down a corridor at 3 a.m. Technically safe, objectively fine, and somehow deeply, persistently wrong. Liminal spaces are photographs of that feeling, made external, made visible, made shareable. And the reason millions of people look at them and say, yes, exactly that, is because millions of people are already living inside one. 1910, outro plus engagement. Now, I want to ask you something directly. You've been in a liminal space that got to you. I know you have. Not just a building, a moment, a specific room, a specific hour, a specific kind of quiet that felt wrong in the way we've been talking about. Tell me about it in the comments. Where were you? What time was it? And more importantly, did it feel like fear or peace or something in between? Because I'm building something from these answers, and your experience is data I want. If this investigation opens something up for you, hit subscribe. We don't do content here. We do autopsies. And the next one is going to be harder to shake than this one. I'll see you in the next investigation.